Okay, I'm going to start with doing the quickest summary I can, and then we'll explain everything in full detail. So if you don't know any of the lore terms used, I explain them after the summary. And you can also use the timestamps in the description or the comments. So the Fractsidus' main goal is invoking the next stage of human evolution. We get this idea that Solaris 3 used to be a world without enemies or resonators. When enemies suddenly arrived in the Wuthering Waves world, aka tacit discords and tacit fields, so did the appearance of resonators, aka people that can help fight them. Resonators can be seen as a step up in human evolution, and so the Fractsidus want to cause another set of disasters in order to push human evolution to the next step. They currently try to push human evolution through absorbing a tacit discord directly into their bodies, causing a transformative struggle. They also have masks, which help them induce overclocking, stop the body from rejecting the tacit discord, and suppress emotion. Scar in particular seems to have been working with the research center to investigate previous events that coincide with our rover MC, such as the appearance of the goddess and the creation of a hungry being. Okay, that's the main gist, and I'm now going to explain all of that and all of the terms in full detail. One of the most interesting concepts from the Wuthering Waves lore so far is the idea of overclocking, especially the way that the Fractsidus harnesses it, as well as the idea of balance in this world. We'll also talk about what Scar was investigating in the research center and how that relates to Rover MC. Essentially, the world of Wuthering Waves seems to have been normal in a sense in the past. However, it is the way it is now because of the Lament, which is an umbrella term to define the disasters that occur in Solaris 3. Some of these disasters includes the many enemies such as tacit discords and tacit fields that were created, as well as retroact rain. These disasters seem to have particular frequencies or energies, which is why they are collectively called the wave-worn phenomena. At the same time of these enemies being created, resonators also came to be, hence why they have a tacit mark. Resonators are able to resonate with a particular frequency and use it. For instance, yangyang resonates with the frequency of wind. When someone starts to resonate, their powers awaken, also known within the game aptly as an awakening, and receive the tacit mark. So essentially what makes this game so interesting is the way that there seems to be a sense of balance in this world, which is my personal theory on the Wuthering Waves world. Great enemies were created and so were resonators, aka people that have enhanced abilities that can help fight these enemies. This balance in the world is similar to that seen in Jujutsu Kaisen, where Gojo being born caused curses to become stronger. There's a balance between sorcerer strength and curses, but back to Wuthering Waves. We see this balance within resonators too, as resonators can suffer from overclocking, which is where a resonator's mental capacity is overloaded, possibly causing them to lose control over their powers. The cause of overclocking can vary from resonator to resonator, but essentially it seems to be often associated with overwhelming emotion. In the descriptions of a resonator overclocking that we've seen so far, they often include something along the lines of, "Fortunately, no one was hurt." This suggests that there is a potential for others to be hurt during this loss of control, including the resonators themselves. Now, what if you could control exactly when someone overclocks? Take someone like Kalshiro, who has an unidentified trigger that causes him to overclock. For people like that, it's possible for them to be used to cause mass destruction at the likely cost of hurting oneself, and control when that mass destruction occurs. On Solaris 3, the researchers do their best to ensure that resonators don't overclock. Although not explicitly said, there seems to be hints that the Fractsidus uses this overclocking method rather than trying to monitor and prevent it, particularly from the descriptions of the mass. So some backstory about the Fractsidus. There are two levels within the Fractsidus: the artificers, which are the lower ranked members, and the overseers, who are seen as leaders with greater abilities such as Scar. Due to the Lament, human evolution and life as everyone had known it had changed entirely. The creation of resonators could be seen as a step up in human evolution, despite the enemies that were also created through the Lament. The Lament shows that it is possible for human evolution to change. The goal of the Fractsidus is to cause the true Lament, presumably another disaster or set of disasters that will cause human evolution to change to an even greater extent. One of the ways they do it is by absorbing a tacit discord into themselves, which causes the resonator to engage in a transformative struggle with the tacit discord. So, in the game, when you defeat an enemy like a tacit discord, there is a chance to leave an echo behind. This echo is what you can absorb to use as artifacts, which is Genshin terminology, or you can use the abilities of that enemy for a short amount of time. However, you have to defeat the enemy first, and what you absorb is essentially their decaying form that they leave behind, so it's not like you're absorbing the enemy itself. They are also absorbed by the Pangu terminal, not necessarily by the resonator themselves. The MC rover that you play is kind of an exception to this case. Okay, so my presumption is that what the Fractsidus is doing instead is absorbing the tacit discord in its entirety, aka not the echo version, and they absorb it into the actual self themselves somehow, which causes the transformative struggle and what we see in Scar's boss fight. There seems to be some negative emotions that stir after this absorption, and the body of a resonator does reject the tacit discord, even upon successful integration, both of which the masks are said to help suppress. Not to mention Jujutsu Kaisen again, but it's kind of how I imagine Geto might feel swallowing curses all the time. We know that the hallucinations from Retroact Rain are from the intense memories of the people, and that Thunodians feed off of a collapsed human's will. So it is possible that these enemies hold the same energy or frequency of negative emotion. Absorbing that into yourself then means that you've taken in a lot of the frequency of negative emotions within the body. Since overclocking often occurs from overwhelming emotion, the removal of this mask, which can suppress emotion, may be what causes overclocking and therefore enhanced power and strength. However, this continues to hurt the self. So, is this enhanced power and strength worth the emotional and physical pain? We see here again this balance. In trying to take the next step of evolution, torture and pain occur. We can presume that Scar was the one who helped funded the research behind artificial Retroact Rain, presumably to find the god or divine miracle. The researchers were a small faction of the Court of 70 committee. I believe the divine miracle they wanted to validate was the goddess we see at the research center and at the beginning of the game. When they failed to create this artificial Retroact Rain, they chose to try and replicate the lost civilization instead. The monster that we see in the research center is what I presume to be something like trying to replicate the goddess itself, the physical manifestation of the lost civilization, or the gate to that lost civilization that the researchers were investigating. In the same way that the monster is always hungry, the little creature inside Rover also says that it's always hungry. So the researchers in Scar may have been onto something, however they weren't able to replicate it to the fullest extent. It's kind of suggested throughout the game that Rover is like a reincarnation of some sort of the first hero that saved Solaris 3. This person is the first one to ever absorb an echo and to create the Pangu terminal. They were also who Joe prophesies to help them under the full moon. We see this with the researchers again, where they say that they are our past but they are also our future, possibly referring to these same events that coincide with this previous hero and the current Rover MC.